Thank you for joining us for today's emergency press conference on the situation in Afghanistan with leader of the Green Party of Canada, Annamie Paul, with special guest speakers Yasmin Rajaba and Shiba Yusufa from CCAP.
Thank you very much for being here today. Merci d'être ici avec nous aujourd'hui. I'm here on the traditional territories of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. Je suis ici sur les territoires traditionnels des Mississauga, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, et Huron-Wendat. I am here in St. Jamestown. I am here in the riding of Toronto Centre, a riding that is home to hundreds of Afghans who call this community home. And I am here on their behalf today to ask for help given the evolving situation in Afghanistan. I will be joined shortly by Shiba Yusulazi. Close, okay. Of Olympia Immigration, and Yasmin Rajabi, both of whom are from also the Canadians for Afghan Peace, Canadian Campaign for Afghan Peace. And they will share their story about how this moment is unfolding for members of the Afghan community here in Canada and what their expectations are. First, let me say that given the events that have unfolded over the last 24 hours, I'm calling on all of my fellow party leaders to suspend their campaigns for the next 24 hours, their election campaigns for the next 24 hours, in order to focus their attention where it should be, which is on the crisis that has unfolded in Afghanistan. All of the Canadian citizens and permanent residents and Afghan support staff that helped Canada's military and diplomatic staff who have been left behind. I am asking that we do the right thing, suspend our campaign so that we can all concentrate our attention on where it should be, which is figuring out how we can rescue those that have been left behind in Afghanistan. Alors, je demande aujourd'hui que tous les chefs des partis fédéraux suspendent leur campagne pour 24 heures pour concentrer leurs efforts, leurs équipes sur la situation, la crise en Afghanistan et les milliers de citoyens et citoyennes, de résidents permanents et leurs familles, et aussi les membres de notre corps, le corps professionnel d'Afghans qui ont soutenu et travaillé pour le gouvernement du Canada, notre militaire et notre corps diplomatique. For those who aren't aware of what is happening in Afghanistan, we have not suspended, but we have ended our evacuation flights. We have ended the evacuation flights of our nationals and also of Afghan refugees. Our special forces have withdrawn. The airport is closed. And today there were, within the last 24 hours, there have been 2 terrible bombings at Kabul airport in Afghanistan. Many people have been killed. Many more have been seriously wounded. And so the window of opportunity that was open to rescue Afghan support staff and our Canadian citizens and permanent residents and their families through the airports or through other means of evacuation, that window has now closed. What it means concretely is that we have thousands of people that we have left behind, thousands of people who have been urged by our own global affairs to go into hiding, to find a safe place to hide until a plan can be crafted to get them out of the country. Afghanistan was one of Canada's most significant military engagements. We lost about 160 soldiers in Afghanistan. Thousands more were wounded seriously, and more than 40,000 military personnel were engaged. We had thousands and thousands of Afghans who supported our mission, who fought alongside us, who died alongside us, and who we committed to protect and that we promised we would not leave behind. And so in light of this news, all of my plans changed today. Parce que nous avons fait le promis d'assurer que tous nos citoyens et citoyennes, tous nos résidents et tous ceux qui ont travaillé avec nous, qui ont qui ont souffert avec nous, qu'il aurait une place ici au Canada. And because we do not yet have a plan to fulfill our promise, I have been spending today being briefed on the evolving situation, speaking with Afghan associations here in Canada, and considering concretely what tangible proposals the Green Party of Canada can add in order to determine what kind of credible plan can be put in place. I think that it is very important that we make no mistake that this was foreseeable, this was avoidable, and it is a national shame that we have ended our evacuations knowing that we have left thousands and thousands of people behind that could have been rescued, that could have been evacuated if we had responded in a timely way. Il n'y a pas d'excuse. Tout ça était prévisible. On avait les préavis. On avait suffisamment de temps pour assurer l'évacuation et la sécurité de nos Canadiens et Canadiennes et de les personnes qui nous ont aidés en Afghanistan. Alors, en ce moment, notre attention doit être ciblée sur les solutions. Ça doit être ciblé sur un plan d'action pour assurer que ces gens qui ont été laissés dans le pays ont une possibilité d'être sauvés. And so, even though we are in an election, which of course we called, and when I say we, I mean Mr. Trudeau called at exactly the moment that Kabul was being surrounded and the president of Afghanistan was fleeing, that despite the fact that we are in the election, some things are more important, some things must take precedence, and this is one of those moments. Because if we are going to be able to look back a year from now, a month from now, 10 years from now, and know that we did the right thing and that we did everything that we could in order to save the Canadians that were left behind, in order to save the family of Canadians who were left behind, in order to save the Afghan support staff who helped us and who counted on us, then this is the moment to do that. And so again, I am asking the Mr. Trudeau and the relevant federal ministers to completely divert all of their attention to this crisis until they can propose a credible solution to the people of Canada. And I'm asking all political parties to come together in a cross-partisan way to develop solutions. I called for for a federal leaders debate, and that still stands. But if there is another format that is more productive, then of course we're open to that. Alors, j'ai fait l'appel pour un débat entre les chefs de parti. Je fais l'appel encore, je fais l'invitation encore. S'il y a un autre moyen de nous convoquer pour considérer les options, je suis tout à fait ouverte à ça aussi. And with that, I want to ask Yasmin and Sheba if they would please come forward. I want to do all that I can to put a human face on what is unfolding in Afghanistan. I want every person in Canada to understand what is at stake and what role Canada has to play and what our responsibility is in this situation. If you could please come forward. And I will leave them to say what needs to be said in their own words.
Thank you, Ms. Paul, for giving us this platform. My name is Yasmin Rajabi, and I'm here with Sheba. And we are representatives of the Canadian Campaign for Afghan Peace, which is a coalition of Afghan Canadians who are urging our government to act now and protect the lives of Afghans and those that have supported us in our mission in Afghanistan. When I woke up this morning and I heard news that Canada has decided to withdraw and wrap up its evacuation efforts in Afghanistan, it was in disbelief. I could not fathom that our Canadian government was abandoning not only its own citizens, its residents, but also the people that we had promised to help, the people that had already received visas from Canada. It took me too long for that to sink in, that the Canadian government is willing to sacrifice Canadian citizens and residents and the people that have supported us in the country, and has completely abandoned them. And the messaging that they are hearing right now is that they should shelter in place, but sheltering in place under a Taliban regime is completely dangerous. We are hearing reports from the ground now that Afghan women who are leaders have been found in their safe homes and have been shot and murdered by the Taliban. And that is the fate that awaits Canadian citizens, residents, and the people that have supported us. For those who remember what Taliban occupation looked like 20 years ago, it was horrendous. So many lives were lost, especially those who were religious and ethnic minorities. Myself, I am Hazara, which is an ethnic minority that has historically faced prosecution in Afghanistan, as well as Shia, which is a religious minority. The last time the Taliban were in power, they ruthlessly murdered us. And there was a genocide happening in place. And we are seeing again that is taking place again. Just last month, Amnesty International released that 7 Hazara men were tortured and killed. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more that is going to happen. It is disappointing that the last flight has left. Canada has not done enough to evacuate people from Afghanistan. The United Kingdom has evacuated 11,000 people. The United States has evacuated 80,000. Canada to have evacuated 3,700 people is insufficient. It's laughable about how low those numbers are, and there's so much more that we can do. Canada could have reduced red tape and waived a lot of the requirements to be able to get a visa, such as biometrics, and also making the documentation to be able to apply for a visa available in the language of the people of that country, which is Dari and Pashto. They could have also communicated much better. I've been hearing so many, and I've been receiving so many text messages, phone calls from people in Afghanistan right now saying, hey, do you know people in government? I've been calling that number for IRCC and I cannot get in touch. They have not responded to my emails. I have received approval for a visa, but I cannot get to the airport and there is no help. How is it that we are able to abandon our own people? And we need to make sure that the Canadian government can be clear about their plans. They need to tell us that what their plans are to get Canadians, residents, and those who helped us in Afghanistan out of the country. It is not enough for us to say that we are going to abandon them there, because it is only a matter of time before the Taliban regime, something horrific happens to them. And I've just been crying all day thinking about that potential. To be able to meet our promises, the Canadian government needs to be able to help those Afghans and those Canadian citizens and residents to get them out of the country. They need to reassure the public that they are committed towards doing that they are going to provide communication to those individuals, and that they are going to try and make sure that every diplomatic channel is going to be used to get them out of the country and evacuated and provided refugee status. I am also here with my colleague and friend Shiva, who can tell us a little bit more about the immigration process and the Afghan resettlement program and where it needs to go.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Shiba Yusufzai. I'm here on behalf of Olympia Migration. I'm also here on behalf of CCAP. Thank you so much for giving us this platform to speak on this. My background is mostly about immigration, and I'm here to talk about that and to basically tell you guys how disappointed I am as a person. I've been getting hundreds and hundreds of calls from Afghan Canadians, from Afghans back home, from everyone telling me, how can we get out? And the only way I can help them is, have you worked with the Canadians? Have you worked with the Canadian Forces, Army, the embassy, or in any capacity? Most of them have not. And that's where the issue is for us. Most of the people are stuck. Most of the people that work with the Canadians are not able to get through to IRCC. They're not able to get their visas. They're not able to communicate. And I think that's where the biggest issue comes from. We need to have, as Canadians, and we need to have a clear plan of how we're going to help them. This morning, as Yasmin said, we woke up to the horrific news of, Canada has completely, they have ended their evacuation plan. And that doesn't sound good. We were only able to bring in 3,700 Canadians, PRs, and Afghan nationals. So that's how much we were able to bring in. I don't think that's enough. I think that breaks the promises of the Canadian government to the Afghan nationals, especially to the Afghan nationals who supported the Canadian forces, the Canadian embassy, the Canadian NGOs and whatnot. They're completely abandoned. We need a better plan. We need more than 20,000. Even the 20,000, they're not additional applications. They were existing applications, and the Canadian government simply said that they will expedite it. We're thankful for that, but we need additional applications. We need a plan where we can tell people this is how you can get out. So I urge the Canadian government, on behalf of Olympia Immigration and on behalf of Canadian Campaign for Afghan Peace, to please do not end your evacuation plan. 3,700 is not enough. A lot more people helped you. A lot more people's lives are in danger, especially of minorities such as Shia people, the Hazara community, women, journalists and activists and whatnot. Please do not abandon them. Please stay there longer, get as many people out as you can, and then we will work on how to bring in more people. Please get rid of the red tape that surrounds immigration, especially immigration of refugees who are stuck outside of Afghanistan and people who are simply stuck inside and cannot do anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I will just end by saying that this is one of those moments of reckoning. This is one of those moments where every second counts. What we do now, we do not only to save those who need to be saved and who we promise to be saved, and our own citizens who need to be rescued, but we also do it with an eye to our place in history. This is one of those moments that we will be judged for, that we will be held accountable for. And if we ever hope to hold our heads up high and not to have them drop down in shame because of our inaction when people needed us the most, when our citizens needed us the most, and when the people who fought and died and risked their lives for Canadian citizens and for peace and democracy around the world. If we turn our backs on them now, if we abandon them to their fate, to beheadings, to sexual slavery, if we send women back into their homes for a whole generation because we refuse to act at a time when it was so important, then we will be judged harshly, and we should be. And so I hope there is a government in place now, still, despite the election. Mr. Trudeau and his ministers need to drop whatever they're doing, whatever they thought that they were going to be announcing this afternoon. They need to get to work. They need to get to work on that plan. And they need to ensure that Canada remains a country that when it makes a promise, it keeps the promise. And when a Canadian's life is at risk, we do what it takes in order to get our Canadians home. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And we're ready for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Merci, Madame Paul. We'll see if there are any questions online on Zoom. Are there any questions here on Zoom? Est-ce qu'il y a des questions? S'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction de lever la main si vous avez une question. If there is a question, please use the raise hand feature. No questions? That's all from here, Ms. Paul. No questions ici. Merci. Il n'y a pas de questions ici.
Thank you so much, Rosie. We have a question from the ground from the National Post. Over to you.
Yeah, Ms. Paul, I'm wondering if you can detail what you think the government should be doing differently. Should it be keeping Canadian troops and planes on the ground even as the airport security starts to crumble? What should it be doing?
The force, the personnel on the ground is gone. So that's already done. That's already done. We need to first acknowledge the new reality, and the reality isn't even 24 hours old, which is that our personnel has gone, our evacuation flights have ended, our evacuation efforts have ceased. We have asked, Global Affairs have asked Afghan Canadians who remain in Afghanistan, as well as their families, as well as the Afghan support staff who helped us to shelter in place, to find somewhere safe to hide. And so the situation that those people find themselves in now is one where their only option is to find some alternative route to get out of the country. There is no plan. Over the last couple of days, we heard various vague things about staying as long as it takes and trying hard and so forth. We have gone. That is done. And so we need the plan B. There should have been a plan in place already, but there wasn't. And so we heard concretely about some of the things that need to happen. For those who are able to make the dangerous trip and brave the frontiers and somehow get out of Afghanistan, then we need to make sure that paperwork is not going to be holding them up from getting to the safe haven that is Canada. We have got to get together again and again and again every day with our international partners to talk about how we can extract the maximum degree of assurances from the Taliban that those who are still trapped within Afghanistan and therefore under their control will be safe for as long as they are there, and will have safe passage as soon as they ask for it. And as soon as they ask for it, as I said, no red tape. Let's make sure that they can get out as quickly as possible. We do not have those assurances. We do not have those assurances from the Taliban. We need to have those assurances. And as I said, until our government has a robust, credible, actionable plan, then they should not be focusing on anything else, because every moment counts.
Just to come back to that, though, what did the government do wrong here? Did they pull out too early? Did they get started too late? What was the wrong thing the Justin Trudeau government did here?
Okay, there are several things, and I'll also pass it to our guests so that they can share their experience. As you heard, they're dealing moment by moment with Afghans in the country, and of course families outside of the country who are trying to get their loved ones out. So here are some of the. We've got ourselves a heckler. So here are a few of the things that the government of Canada could have done differently. And I say this just to contextualize some of the things that I'm saying. I say this as a former diplomat. I say this as someone who worked as a director in one of the leading international NGOs focused on protection of civilians in the context of deadly conflict. Canada knew months in advance that the US was withdrawing. What that means is that Canada knew that there was a very high risk that when the US withdrew, that the Taliban could and would overtake the country, and that those who were inside the country would be put at risk. And so we had months and months and months of warnings from the Afghan community in Canada, from our personnel on the ground, from intelligence services, that this was a real risk, and we did nothing. We did not cut the red tape. We did not accelerate the visas. We did not create a plan to evacuate those who wished to be evacuated before the United States left. So that was the original sin. That was the original problem. And then when Afghanistan fell to the Taliban, even as they were surrounding Kabul, even as they were surrounding the presidential palace, we called an election. Instead of our ministers focusing all their attention on the small window of time that they knew they would have to evacuate people from Kabul airport, they were focusing on making the announcements in their writing. They were focusing on seeking that majority that they are so obsessed with. They weren't focusing the attention where they needed it, and more time was wasted. And so the Liberal, well, again, it's not, it's a caretaker government now, but Mr. Trudeau and his ministers had their attention focused where it should not have been, when every second counted. And I'm going to just pass it over because I'm sure that I am missing actions that we could have taken.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. And I would even just say right now, with the Canadian Campaign for Afghan Peace, some of our demands around supporting the people in Afghanistan includes increasing the number of Afghans that are going to be resettled here. The Liberal government had announced that 20,000 people were going to be accepted over several years, which is I can't even share like how low that number is. We need to right now accept 40,000 Afghan refugees this year and an additional 40,000 over the next few years, and make sure that we are providing a safe haven for those whose lives are at risk and that has also helped us. Right now, the Canadian Campaign for Afghan Peace has met with Ms. Annamie Paul, has met with Mr. Jagmeet Singh, but after several requests to meet with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we have not received any answer. Justin Trudeau needs to be able to meet with members of the Afghan Canadian community and listen to our position on how to support peace in Afghanistan. This has been a complete failure from the very beginning. As Ms. Paul mentioned, we had ample opportunity to be able to evacuate our personnel, the people that have helped us, but we have not taken that opportunity to do so. We dilly-dallied, we took our time, and now the lives of those people who are still remaining in Afghanistan, their lives are in our hands. And if we do not get them support in time, if we do not get them evacuated in time, their blood will also be in our hands.
All right, I think, one second.
And thank you so much. Those are all our questions from the ground today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Merci à tout le monde. Thank you for being here, and thank you very much for being here. We hope that we'll see the action that can do our country proud. It's not too late yet. It's harder, but it's not too late. And we stand ready to do all we can with the other parties in order to see that action. Thank you very much.